from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London. The international cricket season has drawn to a close. I just got back from Derby, where on a cold and wet late September night, the England and West Indies women had a 5-over thrash, and it was genuinely quite a lot of fun. So never mind T10, I'm all up for a little bit of T5. But unfortunately, COVID-19 cases are trending upwards in the UK. Some tighter restrictions brought in with some local and regional lockdowns. Let's hope that it can stem the tide and things get better rather than get worse.
It's Jim Maxwell for the ABC in Sydney, and fortunately I'm pleased to report that Sydney, New South Wales, there have been no COVID cases in the last few days. Things in Victoria seem to be improving in this strange world of the Federation of Australia. Borders are looking to reopen, so we may have a normal test cricket season yet. We're not too sure because they haven't released the dates, but we have had a start to the international season with a strong performance by the Australian women's team. They say the two most popular teams in Australia are the Australian women's cricket team and the Matildas, the Australian women's soccer team. So that's something that gives us all a fillip as we look forward to gradually things returning to normal in Australia.
Well, things are certainly looking good down under, Jim. This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio in Bangalore, where the COVID gloom continues, sadly. But there is a little bit of good news. There's another unlocking nationally, despite the spiraling figures somehow. I think it's unlocking number 5.0 or something. But what it has done is allowed some cinema halls to open, partially, we're told, and so that might be pretty full. And, of course, some sporting facilities, which is the good news. But that's only for top-level sports persons to be able to train. So there is that gradual now sport return to India, which also means that the Indian cricket calendar the domestic calendar might now be firmed. But I have to say, all eyes staring at the IPL.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? The top flight cricket at the moment that would normally be happening in India isn't. So that's all over in the UAE. But Charu, let's start with that this week, because by any standards, it has been a pretty amazing week of Indian Premier League cricket, because first of all, we had the highest ever run chase in IPL history. That was the Rajasthan Royals chasing 224 to beat King XI Punjab. And then we had your home team, Royal Challengers Bangalore, beating Mumbai Indians with, wait for it, a boundary from Virat Kohli off the final ball of a super over. Doesn't get any more exciting than that. Have you caught your breath?
Well, it couldn't have been better scripted, could it? I've got to say, it's been fabulously entertaining, and there have been, of course, records made, as you just mentioned, plenty of action, last ball victories, super overs, 2 of them already. All that's fantastic. However, there have been a few matches. For instance, RCB's 97-run loss to Punjab team, and that allowed all of us to catch our breath, because I do feel that although at the small ground at Sharjah there have been fabulous scores, the bowlers have had something. I think Ball has won a few matches, the paceman as well as the spinner, so there seems to be a certain level of evenness there. But for me, the best news is the fact that no team has been allowed to run away so far. Some of the table toppers have lost to the bottom of the table teams. And if this can only carry on for a while, all teams will feel that they are live for a spot in the Final Four to late in the tournament. No better news for any league.
Yeah, I just want to mention what's my favourite moment so far, which was the boundary save by Nicholas Pooran for King XI Punjab that went completely viral. For anyone who haven't seen it, I would urge you to go and look it up, because he's a West Indies star. And what happens in this clip is that he leaps full length over the rope to catch the ball. And just before hitting the ground, he flicks the ball back into play to save what were 4 very valuable runs. But he does all of that airborne. It was brilliant. We have seen fielding feats similar to that, but this particular one, just the full-length leap over the rope, was quite spectacular. And even the great Sachin Tendulkar saw fit to comment on social media about that. He described it as the best save he's ever seen in his life. Pooran is a wicket keeper, so, he's used to throwing himself around, but have you ever seen anything quite like that?
Well, he must weigh about 5 kilos to be able to fly through the air like that and not make some kind of mistake. It was something out of the trapeze performance in the circus, wasn't it? He probably doesn't understand that in the old days, as they say, the fence was the boundary, and that's something you could never have attempted to do. So it's just as well they did change the boundaries to make it safer for fielders when they're out there trying to do what they do. But, that was amazing. One of the most stunning pieces of fielding you'd ever see, and we keep seeing it, and mainly in T20 cricket. That's where it's exposed by a variety of people, but that was one of the great saves. As Sachin Tendulkar said, it's sheer brilliance.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Next on Stumped, to a remarkable and brave revelation from the man who once did this.
And Flintoff goes roaring in again. He's there, he bowls to Ponting. Oh my word, he's caught behind. Is he there? Yes, he is! He's caught behind. A fabulous over by Andrew Flintoff. A wonderful over. Has seen off Ricky Ponting after Justin Langer. And now there's some real belief here at Edgbaston.
Yeah, that was Andrew Flintoff at his seemingly invincible best, dismissing Ricky Ponting when he inspired England's victory in the 2005 Ashes. And yet, only this week, we've discovered that Flintoff was suffering an inner turmoil during that series and for many years before and after. In a BBC television documentary, Flintoff has admitted to an ongoing battle with the eating disorder bulimia. Just have a listen to Flintoff with a warning for you that some listeners might find this topic upsetting.
There's no better way to answer the critics than with a sparkling innings like that.
Yeah, I played all right for a fat lad. I think that's when it really started for me. Something changed in my mind then, where I was acutely aware of it, but worse than that, everybody else was aware of it. I became known as a fat cricketer, really. That was horrible. That's when I started doing it. And then just carried on, and I was doing it all the time.
Yes, Andrew Flintoff. Well, the first thing to explain is that bulimia is a mental illness manifesting in the sufferer eating large quantities of food and then trying to compensate by either vomiting, fasting, or exercising excessively. And this is what Flintoff was silently suffering with at the height of an incredible playing career even, and ongoing after that as well. It was a really powerful programme, Jim and Charu. He spoke to fellow sufferers. He spoke particularly poignantly with the parents of a young boy who had died, not from bulimia per se. He had a heart attack, though, in his sleep because his body just couldn't cope. So the bulimia led to the death of a young man. He also, in speaking about his own story, as he spoke about there, the pressures of the press when he was playing and the way he was hounded for being overweight and being fat, and it genuinely had an impact on him. And he didn't seem to have the support at the time that he needed to cope with those media pressures. But another big thing which comes out of this programme is that people often link eating disorders to women in particular, and yet here we have a very macho male cricketer revealing that he was making himself sick after food for much of his career, even sneaking into the Lord's toilets. He knew where to go. He had to plan and work out every cricket ground, like where can I go to throw up after eating. It's a powerful programme. Did it surprise you to hear this even from somebody like Freddie Flintoff?
Oh, indeed, because I watched him as you did during the most powerful time in his career. There was no evidence from the way he hustled it and bowled those thunderbolts in 2005 and again in 2009. And with his batting also in that series. I mean, he was such a durable, muscly, all-round cricketer. Who would have known that anything like bulimia was taking a toll on his body? It wasn't at all obvious. Nothing was obvious other than the exhibition of an athlete who was in his prime. So I'm shocked to hear about all this.
Yeah, well, one has to appreciate the fact that Freddie actually came out with it because, so many people hide behind the usual macho male sports star facade. And I don't know much about bulimia, but one has the impression that it's normally leading to these very underweight souls. And Freddie was always big and strong. And of course, later in his, should we say, second boxing career, he continued to be big and strong. But I think what it does do is showcase the fact that high intensity and the expectations at the top level of sport can induce all sorts of stress-related problems which remain hidden. And in a team sport, maybe it's a lot easier because you can talk to colleagues and others, and these, of course, there's a big support staff. But maybe it's a lot worse in individual sport where sometimes players have nowhere else to go to express their anxieties. But I'm glad that he's through all of that and that he's come out with it. So maybe others who may suffer from such anxieties or disorders can actually get some more counselling. I keep saying counselling, more and more counselling for top-level sports persons.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Next on Stumped, the men's international calendar was ripped to shreds by the COVID crisis, but it seems as if it is gradually starting to be pieced back together, at least for the next 6 months. This week it was announced that New Zealand will host West Indies, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Australia's men over various formats between November and March. For the West Indies men, well, it'll be their first action since the Test Tour of England back in July, which was the very first to take place in a biosecure bubble. I've been catching up with their head coach, Phil Simmons, who says the series offered a vital lifeline to cricket in a cash-strapped part of the world.
First of all, I think the bubble has saved a lot of our sport. I think from a point of view, if we didn't play at that time, where would the sport be now? I think there was a lot coming out of being in that bubble and being able to play to show that the cricket can go on. But for me, the bubble was excellent. I think that we got a lot out of it from a point of view. Yeah, we didn't win the series, but the way we trained, the way we had guys under us, and we got to see a lot of the extra players that we brought who on the sidelines, on the periphery, from a point of view of training together, being together, having a full team spirit and everything. The bubble was brilliant.
So a lot of people were thinking the fact that the West Indies came to the UK at the height of the pandemic, that by way of, say, a thank you, the ECB should be sending a team to the West Indies.
I think England know that there's a, not obligation, but fair is fair, and I think they know that at some point they will have to give us back something, to, so to speak. How they do it, I think there's been a lot of dialogue between our top brass and the English top brass. So I'm sure something is being put in place where that is concerned. It needs to be like that. I think all the countries below, I would say the top three, because the top three are more or less financially secure kind of thing. So I think all the countries below, I think there must be some sort of assistance. The ICC must be looking at ways in which they can help the West Indies, the Bangladesh, the South Africas of this world get on top of their financial situation, because this pandemic has put a big hole in even a bigger hole than there was before. So I think from that point of view, ICC's got to be looking and seeing how they can help. It's similar to Premier League looking to help the EFL, so something like that would be good.
So that's the West Indies men's head coach, Phil Simmons. Just to pick up first of all on his call there for England to tour the West Indies as a kind of quid pro quo. We've asked the England and Wales Cricket Board about this, and they have sent us the following. They say, we have always been keen to support the West Indies, including agreeing extra matches on our 2019 tour. And we've said previously that we would look at how else we can assist them following their visit this summer. While the current international calendar doesn't allow us to travel to the West Indies before our next scheduled visit in early 2022, we're currently in discussion with them about expanding this tour to include additional games. So no imminent plans for England to travel to the West Indies. I mean, it's all very well countries being invited to tour other countries, but unless they can actually host their own series, and maybe they need assistance to do that, but they need these countries, even if it is as the scheduled tour is set out, and it's not England coming to squeeze in an additional trip. But yeah, if they can't do that, they're going to struggle to get not least the level of broadcasting revenue that they need to stay solvent.
The costs of staging cricket are very, very heavy, and they need more support. And this is a bit of an issue now that the ICC's expanded its top line with Afghanistan and Ireland. But I think that's a case in point. And my goodness, Australia needs to put its hand up strongly with countries like Bangladesh. I can't remember when they were here. It seems like they were 20 years or something, but it's a long while. So, I mean, the big countries have got a responsibility to look after the poorer ones, even allowing for the fact that the schedule's congested and there's T20, one-day cricket and so on. But, I think the helping hand has got to be stronger. Otherwise, we may not have a West Indies team of any substance in another generation, and that would be terrible.
I wonder where cricket wants to go, because the top 14 of any country might be a little stressed. But maybe the top nations can figure out a way where some of the top stars are included in an 11 which contains players on the cusp to go and play series in these smaller nations. Because that's one way out. You've got to play cricket there to generate the excitement and the revenue in those countries. Because really, in another 3-4 years from now, unless the domestic T20 leagues bail out these boards, there's going to be serious financial problems, which then maybe it'll be too late to rescue.
Sourav Ganguly, BCCI, says he is determined that India will host England in India in 2021. How realistic is that? Just next year.
Well, it does seem increasingly possible now. At the start of the show, I did mention that there's unlocking 5.0 or whatever, even though the figures are still rising. But it is possible that the government now, and certainly the local authorities, might assist cricket in creating some sort of a sanitized atmosphere where international cricket can happen, because surely India cannot lag so far behind in hosting international sport. So I do think that there's a distinct possibility. Unfortunately, we'll have to sort of take a fortnight by fortnight viewpoint here, because if the situation continues to worsen in India and there's no kind of holding back this pandemic, then maybe the government would be a little leery of giving such permissions. Because as we know, in very populous nations, one such as India, large nations, it's a little more difficult to create that sanitized environment because just so many people are involved. But for the moment, it does seem possible, yes, which is, of course, very good news for fans in India.
Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport using the hashtag BBC Stumped. Thanks to Jim Maxwell and Charu Sharma, and to you for listening. Join us again next time. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.